after yesterday's talk and after what Pablo and both Stephen said about philosophers, I'm a bit sort of apprehensive about introducing some philosophers. I think, though, it would be nice to have some dialogue between Ibn Arabi and maybe some contemporary and some ancient philosophers. Maybe not the philosophers that Ibn Arabi was mentioning or that they had in mind when he was talking about the limitation of the philosopher. So the title of today's lecture is Seeing the Unseen on the Nature of the Cosmos. And whatever that means, but the title brings in together two concepts, cosmos and sight. Or one could say it's sight and what reveals itself, what offers itself to sight to be seen. Okay. So before one or any of you could assume the presence of some sort of subject-object dichotomy or the fact that the perceiver has some control over the object through sight, or we even embark on a journey to try to understand the dynamics of their interrelationships, I would just like to simply say that cosmos is the place where we journey, right? Whatever cosmos might mean, but it is where we go to journey, and you're all journeying in the footsteps of the master. And so this is, whether it's intrinsic, whether it's extrinsic, cosmos is the place where we go to, okay? So having said that, I would like to also enunciate the fact that cosmos should not be understood as something, as the conditions that we as human beings dwell within. It's not just the exterior. I believe that the cosmos should be understood in a twofold manner, or more precisely as a duality that inhere within a duality. So the first duality would be the duality of the manifestation of the human being as a microcosm and the manifestation of the universe as a macrocosm. Second duality, which is actually, this underlies all cosmological reality and comes from the divine unity, is one of the dualities which are within the divine names, which I think Mustafa just in his beautiful prayer mentioned, okay? And this is the duality of the hidden and manifest, or Zahir wal Batin. So Ibn Arabi expounds on this interplay and this relation between al-Zahir wal-Batin in relationship to the cosmos, where he says, the cosmos is never empty of these two relations, hidden and manifest, in this world and the last world. When increase occurs in the cosmos to the cosmos, this derives from the hidden, from al-Batin. Increase never ceases, for the cosmos is an increase. Emerging from hiddenness to disclosure never-endingly, so continuously, there's this renovation from the hidden to the manifest. The real, al-Haq, hears the disclosed as king of the askers by way of the name manifest. Al-Haq hears what a servant pronounces, what he or she asks for, through the name manifest, through the name al-Zahir. And he hears their hidden, what they keep in their chests, as they say, it is mentioned in the Quran, by way of the name non-manifest, through al-Batin. When he bestows upon the asker what he asks for, the name non-manifest bestows it upon the manifest, and the manifest bestows it upon the asker. Hence, he ends this with a very vague statement, but he says, hence the manifest is the veil keeper of the hidden, just as awareness is the veil keeper of knowledge. So according to this description, we could say that the cosmos as it is presented into our eyes, is this process of continuous emanation from its primordial hiddenness to manifestness. the manifest, as the veil keeper of the hidden, is always responsible for shielding the hidden in the process of creation. It is a shield. It protects the hidden. Therefore, creation of the cosmos can be understood as a cycle. It's not something that just happens once. It is continuous. And this cycle happens through when the manifest is constantly renewed from the hidden, and the hidden is revived from the infinite subtleties of the divine being. And the divine being is beyond depletion. So this continuous emanation from hiddenness to manifestness is always happening ad infinitum. God hears the hidden plea of the soul of his servant through the name hidden, and he listens to what is asked vocally through the name manifest, so that he can be close to his creation in whichever way they choose to communicate with him. Also, I would say that the dynamics and this sort of mirroring between the name hidden and manifest also reflects the dynamics which are illustrated in the relationship between Lord and cosmos. And those two attributes, hidden and manifest, right, I think their synchrony between them is very similar, as I said, to the synchrony between cosmos and Lord. And in Ibn Arabi's Fusus, we find that he further describes the intimate dialogue between God and servant, okay? When he is discussing Al-Fatiha, which is the verses that you have to read whenever you're in prayer. It's the opening of the book. I'm going to just read a little part. He said that God said, I have divided the prayer equally between me and my servant, a half for me and a half for my servant, who may also have whatever he asks. So it can be deduced from both quotes that within the cosmos, there is this constant process of interaction between the divine and the human, or the divine and the cosmos. It's not something that is separated. So, and this happens within the physical realm, within this realm. This is an understanding that does not present a transcendent God who is sitting in some metaphysical sphere just away from his creation. This is a God who constantly interacts, and where the human being and the cosmos is constantly involved in this process of co-creation, process of renewing of creation. So this is not seclusion. This is, I think, par excellence, this is co-creation, this is participation. And the servant is in an ongoing discourse with the Lord. Cosmos is always in this sort of concert with the Lord. It's not alone. Okay? And it is also worth noting that in Ibn Arabi's first description of the relationship between the hidden and manifest that I've read to you, Ibn Arabi doesn't undermine the human need to know through sight, right? There are, of course, other means of knowledge, right? Like tazawwuq, like other forms of knowledge. However, he did not dismiss it as something that cannot happen, or that's something that is lacking. But on closer inspection, to see the concept of sight, what it entails, we find that most of the time sight dogmatizes. It holds still. It has fixed images. What I see falls under the yoke of my gaze, and it's not really dynamic. To understand it, I have to hold it still like a picture, image, as you were talking about. Okay. So, in that sense, sight would continuously fail to achieve my aim of true knowledge if we're talking about that concept of sight. So my contention would be that maybe what is needed, an ontological attunement to the concept of sight, to change the being, the very being of sight, as Stephen was saying. It's not just the truth that presents itself. It's also the servant who is there to receive this truth. You have the preparedness to allow yourself, to give yourself over to this truth. And so be in this synchrony and be in this co-creation. So this ontological attunement of the concept of sight, as I call it, we will see how could it allow for knowledge through this veil, or the veil keeper of the hidden, through the manifest. To understand this possibility, I will also resort to the theory of imagination. I'm going to read a different bit, so it wouldn't be too repetitive. Okay. So it is said that this imagination is subject to two possibilities. Since it can reveal the hidden by continuing to veil it, it is a veil. Imagination is a veil. However, this veil can become so opaque as to imprison us and catch us in a trap of idolatry. But it can also become increasingly transparent, for its sole purpose is to enable the mystic to gain knowledge of being as it is, because it is, and this is very important, it is the gnosis of salvation. It's the possibility of being saved. So the manifest, which is the veil keeper of the hidden, has to offer itself in this. We're in Eid al-Adha today. This is the first day, right? This is an act of sacrifice. So this act of sacrifice, which is continuous, it veils and it continuously veils the hidden to remain hidden. Yet, as we have heard, the veil can either show the hidden, can show what's behind it, or completely bar it off. If the veil became opaque, one would be blind to the truth within it, and we would be back to the dogmatic understanding of sight, where I have to hold things, where I have to captivate them into these shackles so I can be able to see them. So this quote ends with a description, and I love this description of this knowledge as the gnosis of salvation, which in other words can be the opportunity and the possibility of freedom through knowledge. And I'm going to go into philosophy here, so excuse me, please. But I think this concept would be very interesting to juxtapose to something like the allegory of the cave, which narrates the history of human liberation through knowledge. So the prisoners within the cave, when they become aware, right, because awareness is the veil keeper of knowledge. They have the knowledge, they weren't aware of it. So when they became aware of their situation as prisoners and venture upon the arduous journey outside of the cave to know being, they would not only be saved from the shackles that hold them at their necks and their legs and stop them from moving, but I think they would be also liberated from the shackles of their former knowledge of what being is, the dogmatic knowledge of the shadows and apparitions that they saw on the wall. Heidegger comments on this situation of that and one of the prisoners, right, in his Essence of Truth, where he analyzes Plato's allegory of the cave. And he tells us about this prisoner who is seduced by the appearance of the ideas, and the ideas in the Platonic understanding can be very similar, can be very much likened to the understanding of the divine names. I think that there is something that is that lends itself to this comparison very much. So that prisoner is seduced by the appearance of the ideas in the heavenly vault outside of the cave and doesn't see them as they really are. and they really are occasions of unhiddenness and veiling. They're not just mere images, as you said, right? So he said, whoever comes out of the cave to lose himself in the appearing of the ideas would not truly understand these, i.e., he would not perceive the ideas as letting through, as setting beings free, as wrenching beings from hiddenness, and overcoming their concealment. He would regard the ideas themselves as just beings of a higher order. Deconcealment would not occur at all. And we just listened to you. You were talking about Michelangelo wrenching, right? Taking the sculptures out. It's not that he created something. He set them free. It's this liberation of the image, but not just any image. So also Heidegger talks about that. When people are seduced by the fact that the image becomes everything, when you become imprisoned by this trap of idolatry, it becomes everything for you. It becomes reality. And in this reality, one would be blind to what is behind it. One would be caught in this trap of manifestness. So this person, described by Heidegger, would be, as we have heard from Ibn Arabi, caught in idolatry. He or she would view the ideas or the names as just beings of a higher order, rather than occasions for existence through comportment, and be imprisoned in this trap of manifestness. Heidegger's prisoner, according to Ibn Arabi's quote of the theory of imagination, would be imprisoned by the opaqueness of the manifest veil and would become blind to the hidden. The names or ideas, they describe relationships, links, opportunities for harnessing and discovering, unveiling. They do not acquire an independent ontological entity away from the Lord-cosmos duality. Thus, deconcealment, or as I like to call it, the ontological attunement of sight, can be understood as synchrony, coincidence, discourse, the offering of the journeyer's self so that the hidden might show itself. So I think in the end, one could say that the cosmos, as it is presented to our eyes, a reflection of the eternal realities that are within the world. Whether one labels these realities as divine names, as ideas, or forms, I think is besides the point. The existence of these realities, and this is, I think, the important part, are the things that allow for the cosmological subsistence. And within these realities, sometimes human beings are captivated and shackled, like at the bottom of the cave. But gladly, we have the choice. We have the opportunity of either being consumed in the apparitions, which mimic the realities, which mimic the divine realities, or see them as they are, mere images for something that his or her or my soul has witnessed before. See them as occasions for existence, for knowledge of the self. Human beings must try to overcome this innate darkness, the darkness of the inner cave and the outer cave, and allow the light of the sun, Isfar, as Pablo was just talking about, the beauty of the shining, to allow this light, which is pregnant with knowledge, this knowledge would allow that man, that woman, to be violated by the light and to see what was once unseen. So I'd like to leave you with a quote that speaks about the cosmos. I think it's a beautiful quote by Ibn Arabi. He says, "Everything we call other than God everything we call the universe is related to the divine being as the shadow to the person. The world is God's shadow. The shadow is at once God and something other than God. Thank you so much.